Hello, book lovers. I'm Peg, and welcome to my channel. Well, he's done it again. That's Steve Donahue. I'm sure you guys all know him. He's tagged me again. He knows I love to get tagged, but I like to take it as a challenge. I don't follow the rules. I take a look at the tag, and I look over the questions, and I pick ones I like. And I know he thinks I can't make a whole video out of one question, but I'm going to surprise him. Anyway, yesterday he tagged me on a tag that's called Sisterhood of the World. Quite interesting, but no way can I face all those questions. So the question I really liked was one called, do you prefer series or standalones? Now, I think any book lover's first response to that would be standalones. And in most cases, I too would like to have a standalone. But I'm here to say that there are, especially in the science fiction and fantasy world, there are some series that are meant to be series and wouldn't be good any other way. So I'm going to give you a few of these. If you're new to science fiction, they may be new to you. If not, I'm sure you've heard of them. Okay, I'm going to talking about some series here. The first one that was originally published in 1965 is the first of the Dune series by Frank Herbert. Now, Steve Donahue himself, a couple weeks ago, had a presentation or in his long video, and part of it talked about the Dune series, and of course he's read all of it, and it was very interesting. I'm one of those culprits who's only read the first one and loved it and think I know something about Dune, but I realized when he talked about it, there's much more in the rest of the series, and I'm really anxious to read them probably this winter. The second one in that series, from what he said, was the Dune Messiah. Now, there seems to be some question as if this really belongs second or if it belongs in the series. I didn't really understand the problem, but I'll figure it out when I read it. And I also already have I believe this is the third one, called The Children of Dune. Yeah. Now, I love collecting these mass market paperbacks of series of older science fiction series, but I really don't read them in these. They have little tiny writing. These old eyes just don't deal with that very well. I keep these just to have for my reference. You never know if I might want to read a part in the middle of the night, but so I try to keep all the series in. I even like hunting around used bookstores for these series. There are always lots of them. But as I said, I usually read them either on my Kindle or a hardback from the library, which is much easier reading. I really like Kindle because you can write on it or take notes. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to this now that I've figured out. I know there's some Dune books that were written by his son, and then it's kind of been taken over by others. But I'm pretty straight now that I think there's 5 or maybe 6 that are by him, and they're the real Dune. Okay, so that's a great series that I can't imagine anything but a series as much as it has in it. Okay, now the next author I like in science fiction or fantasy series is a younger man called Brandon Sanderson. I'm sure if you're into it at all, you've heard of Brandon Sanderson. He has written many books. He's kind of the Joyce Carol Oates of the science fiction world, and they're good. His first series was called the Mistborn series, and this is the first one of it. And it was really great, and evidently when he wrote it, people didn't, or maybe he didn't know it was going to be a series, because on the back, the Washington Post Book World says, a fascinating world, one that deserves a sequel. So maybe they didn't know it was going to be a sequel. He not only wrote a sequel, but he wrote, I believe, 9 or 10 in this series. Of course, I have them all waiting in paperback. I've only read the first one, but I'll get to it someday. Okay, now people up to these in the last year or so, people have science fiction and fantasy buffs have taken a new interest in Brandon Sanderson, and but they don't really want to go back and read all 10 of those earlier ones. I think I can't remember when the first one was published because they want to read newer stuff. So Brandon, bless his heart, has started a new series that he promises to have 10 volumes in this series for people that don't want to go back and read the other 10-volume series, but want to get into Brandon Sanderson. So the first one of these, it was published several years ago, is called The Way of Kings. Now, look, thick. This has been very popular with Sanderson fans, and you can look back in BookTube videos. There's a lot of discussions on this, and it's much more fun to read what people are talking about. Actually, the second one of these has been out. I had the list of them, and I could almost tell you, but the second one has been out for some time, and it's still being talked about a great deal on BookTube. And the third one is either just out or out any time, something about the Oathbringers. Anyway, so this is a fun way to read this because it's being talked about and hyped a lot now on BookTube. Heck, I'll fall for that. Okay, keep Brandon Sanderson in mind. You haven't heard the last of him. Okay, the other author that has a older writer, or that has a long series out, is Robert Jordan, and it's called the Wheel of Time series. Now, the first of these was written in 1990, and he went on to write 11 in that series, and people really liked him. And I have to tell you that this one, I believe, this is the second one in that series, The Great Hunt, and it has what I really love. Most fantasy series, epic fantasy series that don't take place on another planet, which would be hard to do, but imaginary place on Earth, give you these great detailed maps. And I love these maps. As I read, I follow along where the people are, and I mean, it shows the mountains and the castles and everything, and it's a great way to build the world in the novel. I mean, I like maps anyway, so it's been really fun to read these and be able to follow the maps. Sometimes I buy an extra copy so I can have the map open, and I love it when they're in color and beautiful maps. Okay, so as I was going to say, Robert Jordan had written 11 books in this series, much loved, and he was an older man, and he became quite ill and knew his time was pretty limited. So he said he had enough material for a book or two, another book or two, to finish up the series, and people were like, "Get it done, man!" But evidently, he couldn't get it done. So he was a friend of Brandon Sanderson. Remember us talking about him? And he gave Brandon Sanderson, the other writer, all his notes to finish up the series, and they had, I think, many discussions about it. And Robert Jordan did then pass away, and Brandon Sanderson completed the series with not one but 3 novels. So there are 3 novels out there that are part of this series, Robert Jordan series, that say on them, written by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. And I haven't read them all, but fans that have, think that Brandon Sanderson did a great job of taking over. He used somewhat his own style, but it fit in so well with Jordan's style, and I've heard nothing but good things about those last three. Okay. Um, the series I really wanted to talk about was a newer series, the Ancillary series by Ann Leckie. Now, this one needs to be a series. Here's the other two. I should hold them up. There's the others too. It definitely needs to be a series because it is so hard to get into. I'm actually rereading it now for the science fiction September challenge. This is my third time reading it, and I'm finally kind of getting it. So I just wanted to give a hint to those out. I know a lot of people are reading it or trying to read it for the first time, and saying they kind of have trouble getting into it. And I had the same thing when I first started. I started several times, and just a few quick words on how to get into it, approach it. It might help you to know. Be ready to read the first part of the first one several times. But mainly, each chapter, there are two time frames going on at the same time. Chapter 1 is a later time frame, 2 is early. Anyway, it's about in the first part, it's a human person appearing called Breck, and she is now a human looking person and is able to come back, but it mentions right away that she used to be a ship's intelligence, the AI on a ship, and she's kind of taking, in the present day, she's going back to some of the people that she knew as the AI on the ship, some of the former officers on the ship that she had problems with or whatever, and finding them and taking care of some older problems. Now, just one more thing. The second chapter, it's suddenly back to 19 years ago when she was not only the AI of the ship, but an ancillary body. Now, an ancillary body it's a military thing that's kind of like a soldier, android soldier that stands guard and stuff. She wasn't just one, but she was a 20-body ancillary. So she's able to write, because she's 20 bodies and she's on land, that she's not at sea now, helping her commander of her ship. It kind of goes from perspective to perspective, and she might be in different places in the town all at the same time, telling you what's going on there. Okay, that's enough. I don't want to confuse you, but what I have to say is it's worth it to get through this first one. I mean, the whole thing is kind of like, remember, trying to jot down what's going on or think what's going on. It's worth it, because by the time you get to the second and third, you've got it. You're in that world. It doesn't surprise you that one person has 5 or 6 different bodies, in some cases 100, and it just fits right into the story, and you're in that world, and it's great. This needed to be a series after all the work you have to do in the first one to get into the thing. Now, here's the deal. I've been so excited. I've mentioned on here before, these are the only 3 books, the series that Ann Leckie wrote, won many, many prizes for. And this month, on the 26th of September, a new one is coming out by her called Provenance. Now, people have been talking about it. I know people have advanced copies, but they've been pretty closed mouth about it. And I have been wondering, is it a new series that I'll have to get used to, a whole other complex thing again? Is it a continuation of this series? Nobody seems to know. But last night, I was reading somewhere on book reviews or whatever, there was kind of a book review of it, and it mentioned that the new one is not a part of this series, but it takes place in this world, and it would be very helpful if you're familiar with this world. So that makes me really excited to get it. So in some cases, I'd say I like series better. Thanks. Bye.